I've done 30 shows in 3 years. I've done 18 Broadway shows in 3 years. I've done opera, I've done ballet, I've done television, I do magazine work. I mean, I do it all. My background in makeup, starting at a counter and walking through that, you learn so much, and I'm able to bring that to us. It takes dedication. It takes learning and understanding and honing your craft. It is not an overnight thing. Like, I've been doing this for almost 30 years. So I didn't just start yesterday. And I've been doing Broadway way before these last 3 years. I think what Black Theatre United is doing is opening the door for people like me to step in and open another door for people who do what I do. And people who look like me, people who don't look like me, as long as I feel that it is important that we set a standard across the board.
My name is Lisa Dawn Cave, and I am a proud founder of Black Theatre United. Welcome to Before the Curtain Rises, the Designer Series. Now let's welcome Kirk Cambridge Del Pesche,
Thanks for having me.
international makeup artist and Broadway makeup designer.
Sounds so good, you say it.
Yay! So we're going to start this conversation with, where are you from?
So I'm from the beautiful islands of Saint Vincent and the Grenadines, and it's an archipelago of like 32 islands in the Caribbean.
Fantastic. Wow. Did you always want to be a makeup designer? Did you even know there was a career in makeup design?
So I come from accounting. So I come from an accounting background.
Okay.
And so when I moved to the States in '99, I got a job with MAC Cosmetics. Had no idea who they were. And so I went shopping with my sister, and there was a woman who was really dark, but her foundation was a few shades lighter. And my sister was like, well, you can't help me. And I was just like, there's no way that negates from the woman's ability to help you. And the woman was like, she liked my approach, and she was like, do you want a job? And I was like, sure. And 2 days later, I started working for MAC Cosmetics.
Are you serious? Wow.
And I worked for MAC. I became a product specialist. I became the #1 salesperson at the counter. I became an assistant manager. I became a general manager. I climbed through the ranks of the company. I was with them for 10 years, did fashion, did magazine work, did everything for MAC. And then I left and I started working in theater.
Wow. How did you become interested in makeup?
So my mom would wear 3 blushes, 6 lipsticks, 10 eyeshadows all the time. And so I'd watch her do it all the time. And I loved art. So I painted a lot as a kid. And so I took art in high school and in prep school. And so then I started modeling when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
And so when I started modeling, I didn't like how I was being treated by the makeup people on the shows. So because I was new, they would always save me for last. And so there was a gentleman from Trinidad and Tobago, his name was Richard Young. I said to him one day, I was like, I want to take a makeup class with you. And so he taught me the basics. And so whenever I went to a show, I was ready. And so other people started asking, could you do my makeup for something? And I started doing people for their weddings or for a special event. And so the love for makeup came through that as another way of being creative.
Mm-hmm.
So besides modeling, there was makeup, and then my real life was accounting.
Wow. Well, I have your number already, and I always need somebody to do makeup because I don't know how to do it. I'm just going to say that right now. That's an amazing story. And it's also inspiring to know it was an interest, then the next step that happened, and then, I mean, like where you are today is wonderful.
It's interesting because as a West Indian, you don't see makeup as a job. No one thought it was. Even coming to the States when I got the job with MAC, one of my family members said, oh, well, that's lovely, but you need a real job. Mm-hmm. And so you hear that as a West Indian, you hear that all the time. And so it wasn't something that was like, oh, I'm gonna go to America and become a makeup artist. No, I intended to come and be an accountant.
Right.
And it just happened that I was in the right place at the right time.
Okay. Okay. So can you take us to, I guess, one of your first theatrical experiences?
So I think about 2 or 3 months after I moved to the States, I went to see one of my friends. Mac was given tickets to see Les Mis, and I love Les Mis, the movie.
Okay.
And so I went to see Les Mis, and I saw Norm Lewis on stage, and I went back to see the Les Mis 50 times.
Oh, okay.
Just because of Norm Lewis.
Okay.
And then I saw Phantom of the Opera, and then going to Phantom of the Opera one day, I met Thelma Pollard. And she came to shop at the Mac store in Flatiron, and we started talking. And she said, "You should come in and see what we do backstage." And I did, and that really brought me into theater, sort of. So I fell in love with it. And so that kind of like is where the fire started.
Right.
And then a few years later, I'd left Mac, and a friend of mine, a young lady who had worked for me at the Mac store, she was working in Tom Watson's studio. And they were doing the Magic Flute at BAM. And they needed someone on makeup. And so they reached out to me, and I went in and I met Tom, I met Chuck, I met Cookie Jordan, and we did Magic Flute together. And a few months later, I was doing a show in the Village, 4th Avenue Theater.
Okay.
It was called Walmartopia.
Okay.
And it was about Walmart being oppressive to women, blah, 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 blah.
Okay.
And so Cookie called me one day, and she said, "Can we have coffee?" And I said, "Sure." And I was like, I didn't know this woman knew my name. So I went, and she's like, "I want to send you out on tour." And so I went out on tour for Cookie on High School Musical.
Okay.
And so I did some recalibrating of the makeup for Disney. And I fell in love with Disney. Disney fell in love with me. Cookie fell in love with me. I fell in love with her. And so now I've known Cookie Jordan for over 20 years.
And what does Cookie Jordan do?
Cookie Jordan is a wig designer, a Broadway wig designer.
And she is a person of color.
And she's a person of color.
There you go.
Yes. She's a woman of color who is one of the top hair designers on Broadway.
Right.
She started it. So yeah.
Wow. Would you say that you named Cookie, you named Tom? Do you think they were somewhat of mentors, or did they give you a pathway, or did you have like?
I think
a
Thelma
mentor?
Pollard was a mentor. Definitely, she started the Fever, and then Cookie Jordan has taken that stewardship and turned it into more. Because I worked with her on Fela and a bunch of other shows designing under her, because at that point there was no makeup designer.
Right.
Right? Broadway didn't
Right.
have makeup designers.
You're right.
I mean, you didn't have hair designers.
Yeah.
You had costumes, and hair and makeup fell under that.
Underneath. Yep.
And then people like Tom Watson and Chuck LaPointe broke away from that and said, "No, we are our own people." And so hair and makeup fell under here.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Then
You're right.
Cookie Jordan, Chuck, Tom, they all were like, we don't like this. We don't do makeup. So we just do hair. And so they broke away. And so I left makeup for 7 years.
Wow.
Someone said the wrong thing at the wrong time.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, you will not call me that name, and I will not be working for you again. And so I walked out the theater, and I took my makeup kit and dropped it in the trash can. And I said, "I'm never doing this again." And I walked away, and then COVID happened. And I went to visit Cookie in February. She's like, "I'm sending you a ticket to come and visit me. You're coming to visit me." It's like, fine. And so I go to Santa Fe, and I land. I sit in her Jeep, and she says, "Kirk, it's time for you to come back." I was like, "To do what?" She said, "Come back and do what you're great at." And I said, "Okay." And she's like, "I have a show for you." And so she was doing the show to reopen Broadway, which was Mary Wise, Shakespeare in the Park. And I came in and designed it, and it was an entire cast of Black people who were so excited to work with each other and to love upon each other and to be around each other in the amidst of COVID. And I'd never experienced that, because every Black show I had seen before, there was always drama. There was always tension. There was always fighting. And I was just like, I don't want to be around that. And this show, Mary Wise, was so incredible. And I'm still friends with a lot of the people who I met there. Okay. But there was never a drama, never a fight, never an argument, never a nothing. And I was just like,
this is how it could be.
I was like, Black people do
this is how it could be.
I was like, Black people do this? And so that was really interesting to me. And I was like, okay, so I set my standard. I was like, every show I go to, this is what I expect. And I put it in my mind. And then a couple months into the show, I was running as hair and makeup supervisor, but I also designed it under Cookie. And Cookie said, it's time for you to have your solo makeup career. She's like, I'm going to open a door. And so October, I designed Trouble in Mind with LaShawne's. And a week later, I was designing Clyde's with Uzo.
Oh, I know that
And
one.
it just kept going and going and going and going.
Yes.
I did Birthday Candles with Deborah Messing. I did Skeleton Crew with Felicia Richard. And it just kept going. It kept going. You know what I mean? It just, all these amazing shows. Like I did Skin of Our Teeth at Lincoln Center. That was my first Lincoln Center show. I did A Strange Loop. I did For Colored Girls. I did POTUS. I mean, it just kept going and going and going. And then earlier in this year, I went to Germany with Disney and I designed Hercules in Germany.
Yes.
And we have, a couple other things happening.
Yeah.
And now I have The Wiz, which I did on tour. It's on Broadway now. I did Lampika. I did Notebook.
With that resume, that is reality, right? That there is a career.
There is. It's a career
in makeup.
It's a career that I crafted. I mean, I've done 30 shows in 3 years. I've done 18 Broadway shows in 3 years. I've done opera. I've done ballet. I've done television. I do magazine work. I do it all.
Right.
And my background in makeup, starting at a counter and walking through that, you learn so much, and I'm able to bring that to us.
Yes.
That was the most important part. For me coming back, I was like, I need the people that look like me to always look incredible. So it can't just be I'm making someone else who doesn't look like me look great. I think everyone should look great, especially people that look like me. Mm-hmm. And one of the things is every person I've worked with in the last 3 years, everyone says to me, oh my God, no one's ever taken the time and taught me this. I'm talking like people who are seasoned veterans.
Yes.
And I'm like, what are you saying? Yes. I was like, what do you mean people don't teach you how to do your makeup? And they're like, no, they just give me products.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you have to know, because it's, for me, the research I research every single thing about the show, right? Okay. And then I talk to the director, I talk to the costume designer, the hair designer. And then I do my own research as to, if it's the 1950s, what did the makeup look like then? What were the color palettes? What were the nails? What did the nails look like? What did the eyebrows look like? What did their blush application look like? What did they have blush for us? Was there foundation powder for us? To keep it as close to as possible what it should have looked like back then. And so the audience is transported there, not just with costume, but with makeup. Because it makes no sense having a 1950s costume with a 2024 makeup. Yes. It just makes no sense. Yes. So for me, research is super important. And so my team was like, oh my God, you're always researching. I was just like, but it's important.
I love that.
It's super important.
I love that.
I mean, I did piano lessons, and even that was incredible. Cookie did makeup on Broadway, but at this stage, it's like, you know what I mean? Yeah. It's interesting because there are people like Cookie Jordan who did makeup on Broadway, and now with me, it's very different because I've taken it to a different level. It takes dedication. It takes learning and understanding and honing your craft. Right. It is not an overnight thing. Right. I've been doing this for almost 30 years. Right. So I didn't just start yesterday. And I've been doing Broadway way before these last 3 years. Right. And I walked away for 7 years, and I came back. And to come back at the level and to rise at the rapidity, that the rapidness that I have is unseen or unheard of, I think. Because to do 18 Broadway shows in 3 years, how many makeup or hair people do that? You know what I mean? And it just says that people respect my work and my work ethic and what I bring to the table. Because no two shows look the same. I'm going to brag on that one. Yeah. Because I feel like it is important that every show has its own stake set. And when you look at it, look through the images, you don't see anything that's repeated.
Right. So can I say that the longevity of this career is something what you just said. It takes commitment. It takes hard work. It takes dedication. It takes homework.
Yes, tons of it.
Right.
tons of it. And I think a lot of people just see it and they're like, oh my God, he's so successful. No. I remember coming back to this, starting, and my agent said to me, a show offered me $1,500 to design a massive show. And if I were not this color, they would not charge, and I knew how much my white counterparts were making. And I was like, my agent was like, no, we're going to walk away. I said, no. I said, I said, this first year, we're going to take all of it. We're going to take the good, the bad, the ugly, and indifferent.
Okay.
And I was like, we're going to do it. And by next year, it will change. And by December, that was February. By December, it changed. And
but you had a path. You knew which way to go.
Because I also understood what my worth is. And I think sometimes we don't necessarily, we feel that because we're a certain color or for a certain part of the world or we're immigrant, that we can't ask for things and we can't stand in the way and be like, no, I require more. And I've learned years ago, my grandparents taught me that I am worth more. And so I'm not afraid to ask, and I'm not afraid to talk about the money part, because we're so afraid to talk about money.
You're right.
And the other part of it, the other thing that I have issues is that we try to underbid each other. You know what I mean? If you are in makeup, if you're in hair, if you're in whatever, there should be a standard. This is the price. And I could say, if it's I've been doing this for 1 to 5 years, 1 to 10, 1 to 15. Of course, your pay scale is different. Yeah. And that's how it should be. But you can't tell me that you're going to pay somebody else $10,000 to design a similar show, and then you want to pay me $1,500. That's crazy. Right. So it's sometimes being, in the beginning, it is taking it to build your rapport. Yes. And then after that, you're like, no. Yes. And I'm very good at saying no now. So you just demand what you expect. Right. And it's either they walk away. And for the shows that said no to me or they didn't want me, I'm so grateful because I walked into something bigger and better and shows that paid me what I was worth. Right. But it's hard because it's hard to hear no. It's hard to know that they will say no to you because of the color of your skin, because it still happens. Yes, it does. It still happens. Yes, it does. And it is hard to know that other people who look like you will not use you for whatever their reason is. And that still happens. I mean, you know what I'm saying? So those things are the hard part, and you have to be built a particular way and understand. So the longevity part comes from that. Because if you are not built for this, don't come for it. Because it's a lot. It's hard for them to pay. You have rent and you have this and when you have a team that you have to pay, you have to think about all that. All that's what you think about. I mean, I've done shows where they didn't give me an associate budget, so I had to pay my associates from my fee. My agent was like, what? And I was like, no, we're going to do it. It's okay.
So why do you want to take part in this initiative? And do you think it is important for diversity in this industry?
I think what Black Theatre United is doing is opening the door for people like me to step in and open another door for people who do what I do. And people who look like me, people who don't look like me, as long as I feel that it is important that we set a standard across the board. So people are, when you walk in, you know how much I should be paid. Yeah. I think education is really important. I think that's one of the things as Black people, people of color, we don't share information. We feel like we need to hold on to this information for dear life because this person's going to take my job. Let's take the job, child. If you are better, go for it. If you're what they want, go for it, but make sure that you are paid what you're worth. Right. And that's what's important to me. And I want young people to look at this. Young people, old people. I mean, you're never too old to do it. Right. I mean, I came back to makeup at 45. So, I mean, it's never too late. Right. But it's dedication, understanding who you are, what you bring to the table, and what you're worth. Those things are super important if you're going to come into this. And you're going to do it well. Don't half-ass it. Yes. Do the work. Yep. Yeah.
Can you speak about any awards or recognitions?
So last year, out of the blue, I got nominated for a Cougar Award. Okay. It's this young man. He works in theater. He's super great. He works in the theaters, and he just loves theater. And so he made a mission to go and see all these shows. And last year, me and Neil and I were nominated for the Cougar Award for Best Hair and Makeup for Ain't No Mo.
Oh.
And we won.
Okay.
And then this year, Chuck LaPointe and I were nominated for Best Hair and Makeup for The Wiz, and we won. So I won the Cougar Award twice in a row.
Fantastic.
And I think it's great because you have shows like the Tonys that don't recognize hair or makeup.
I know.
This year they recognized Nakia Mathis, which is incredible.
Right.
But there's no nomination. There's no. Every other award has a category for hair and makeup separately, but the Tonys don't. And so hopefully they can change. And if it's not me, it'll be somebody else that looks like me, and I'm happy for that.
Fantastic. Well, thank you, Kirk, for joining us, and thank you for taking us into the world of makeup design.
Thank you.
Be sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Go to our website for updates and more information at blacktheaterunited.com. Black Theater United, creating pipelines for you, the future of our industry.